Yes, boy, that song is very appropriate this morning. Yeah, but we're coping, you know, we're coping. I may have to bat my cardigan. Oh, you already started undressing.
Yeah, it's, you know, we're having a warm Friday.
All right.
It's good. I'm losing weight in the process.
This is good then. Good morning, Dr. Webster.
Good morning to both of you.
Unfortunately, you can't take off your jacket.
You could, but then we'd have to take the show off the air.
No, then we'd have to get a backdrop that looks like the beach.
Yeah.
But Dr. Webster, Breakfast with the Birds, and you've been doing a series where you focus on what the birds are doing for the first few weeks of the year. So where are we at today? I think this is the final part in the series that we've been discussing.
Yes, it is. And what I want to do this morning is talk a little bit about the blue-winged teal duck, which is the most common duck that arrives on the island here in Barbados. They tend to come around late September into October in small numbers, and then as time goes on, you get larger and larger flocks. You'll get 2 and 3, and then flocks of 10, 20, and then as you get into November, you see flocks of 50 to 100. And they tend to hang around most of the ponds that we have in the island. When they come, they're not particularly pretty, and as we'll see with our photos in a minute, here's a photo showing a flock of about 50 blue-winged teal flying at Woodburn Shorebird Refuge. And our next picture will actually show a bit more detail of the blue-winged teal in flight. Here you can get a better understanding why they call them blue-winged teal. Notice the blue wing patches on the wings as they fly. This is a pair. This is a female leading the male. And you can see the blue patch on the male very clearly with a hint of green as well. And the male is not in full color yet. That was probably taken probably in November, December last year. Now the pictures that we're going to see...
anything to do with mating at all? The
yes,
colors?
it does, and we come to that in a minute. This is a close-up of the wing detail of blue-winged teal duck. And you have genuinely blue feathers with a patch of white and a flash of green.
That's gorgeous.
So hence the name blue-winged teal. Our next picture will show a female in flight. Notice she's somewhat drab, basically brown and mottled. And then we can see what the male looks like in flight. Now this male, as he comes up, he's started to change into his mating plumage. His head gets very colorful, particularly if you see it in bright light, and I'll show you some pictures what I mean. And he has that white stripe along his head. Here is a male about to come into a pond. He's approaching the pond. And then you'll see as he lands on the pond how he hits the water, and look carefully at his head and you see an iridescence. It's kind of purple, blue, depending on the angle that the light hits it.
Yeah.
Now this is another male in poor lighting. The head just looks dark with the white stripe. The iridescence becomes more pronounced as the time goes on to get closer to mating.
Right. So they're communicating all at that point with
there
their potential
are 4 of them
mates.
there on the screen now that actually showing off to the females around. They're developed their breeding plumage.
It's a guy thing.
Very much so. And may the best one win. And here we see what a pair looks like. The female is on the left and the male is on the right. She's rather drab, you know. The males do their thing, and here you can see a pair again from the side. Once again, the male on the left, female on the right, and the male is quite colorful. And this is a pair actually snoozing. If you look at them,
so they
they've
do
got
all
their eyes
this
closed.
before the mating?
Oh, well, don't you?
I'm just asking. You know, trying to see if there are any parallels. So this is all the lead up. I'm seriously asking. This is all the lead up?
Yes.
Okay.
We discovered a pond in St. Lucie. I can't disclose the location, but we found an unusual duck, an uncommon duck. It's a ringneck duck. And they call it ringneck because it has a sort of a ring around the neck, but really and truly the bill is what is the very distinguishing feature. What we saw just was a female. And on that same pond, here was a group of blue-winged teal. And what is interesting here is a pair of masked ducks swimming right in front of them. And the masked ducks found that pond because their ponds are drying up. In this picture, we can see a male was stretching his wings, displaying his blue patches. And this is a panoramic view of the same pond. And in the foreground is another very uncommon and rare duck for Barbados. It's a ruddy duck. It's the first time I'd ever seen a ruddy duck in the wild. And this
I'm
is
just
a female.
kind of curious, though. If you get all these different species of duck coming together, that could spark some mass confusion, because one duck to another duck looks the same.
No, it doesn't. They know each
to
other.
us, they look
They
the
don't?
same.
It happens very infrequently, and maybe sometime in the future, if we continue the series, I'll talk about that. This is a close-up of the female ruddy duck. She's a stiff-tailed duck. Just like the masked ducks, they're stiff tails. And their tail, as we discussed in previous episodes, the tail can be raised. In this case, the tail is lowered into the water. In the previous picture, we saw the tail actually raised. So this was an opportunity to get really close, up and personal with a female ruddy duck. Very unusual to have that opportunity. And here she is with her tail raised, and she's swimming with a common gallinule. The common gallinule, or coot as we commonly call it, was actually eating the root of one of the water lilies. She'll pull at the roots and she'll eat vegetative material. In the next picture, this is an incredible photograph. It's very unusual to have two types of stiff-tailed ducks together, and I was very pleased and privileged to have this opportunity to photograph these together. The one in the center is the female ruddy duck, and the ones in front and behind were the female masked ducks. In this image, the female ruddy duck is stretching her wings, and there's a masked duck kind of looking on, and in the front are two common gallinules. Every time I visited this pond, this particular blackbird, or common grackle, would come and talk to me. It seemed to appreciate my stealth behavior, because I had to creep through the surrounding weeds to get to it. And he would sing, and here he is singing to me. We developed quite a bond, and you tend to bond with
Oh,
birds.
you know he was singing to you.
Blackbird.
Might have been whistling on another blackbird
It
across
could
the
have been,
pond.
but I never saw any other blackbirds across the pond.
Wow.
In this picture, we can see two shorebirds. On the left is a solitary sandpiper, and in the center is a spotted sandpiper, and in the presence of a preening blue-winged teal male. As the ponds on the island dry up, the birds tend to congregate at whatever remains. And this is where you start to get all kinds of different species together. There are not many ponds left on the island with water. In this image, we see the least sandpiper, which is the smallest of the shorebirds. It's about the size of a banana quick or a yellow breast. And in the background, we see the Wilson snipe.
Okay. Stilt Sandpipers.
Stilt Sandpipers, this is part of a flock that arrives every year at a swamp in St. Philip. There are usually about 20. And they're feeding, preparing to emigrate or migrate back to North America.
Okay.
So they're fattening up for that.
Yes, they are.
travel.
They're fueling up. And the short-billed dowitcher, we just saw that. And he really pushes his entire beak into the soft mud. As you can see,
Searching
the
for
beak
food.
is totally covered with mud there.
Have our disappearing wetlands affected the presence of certain birds?
Well, to be honest, we have more wetlands now than we had in past time, because we
Yeah?
have more ponds.
Okay.
The image that we just saw there was a set of semi-palmated Sandpipers that were preparing for migration. They were not on the island. They've been migrating from South America or further south in the Caribbean, pausing in Barbados to fuel up, and they're probably on their way to North America right now.
Okay.
The final image I borrowed from the internet, and it's an incredible image. That is the southernmost tip of Florida, and that is Cuba at the bottom. And in the center of it is the Key West radar station. That mass that you see surrounding the center is all migrating birds. There are
Wow.
tens of thousands of birds migrating. This was taken around midnight on Monday this week. And there's a major spring migration on now where the birds are heading back north. They're heading for their breeding grounds in northern Canada. And this is what tends to happen. I don't know how many tens of thousands. There are
Wow.
probably hundreds of thousands of birds in that
they all
particular
know
flock.
For
Exactly
birds,
where
spring
they're
break is
heading.
north.
That's
whereas
correct.
Human spring break is south. Interesting indeed. Interesting indeed. Dr. John Webster, fascinating story. We like the activity you've been bringing us up to date with on the birds, and perhaps we can talk in future episodes about what happens during the dry months. Is there less migration, and what can bird watchers look forward
Well, there's lots of material available. You tell me when, and I'll be here.
All right.
to? All right, Dr. John
Thank
Webster,
you.
thank you very much. Time now for our nice tip of the day.